My name is Merla Jean Thatcher. I'm 83 years old. I've lived through things I don't talk about. Things most folks wouldn't believe. I was raised in a house where love was just a word preachers said on Sundays. I had 3 brothers who treated me like a maid, a punching bag, and eventually, when they didn't need me anymore, like I didn't exist. I made it through that house. I made it through a marriage that turned sour faster than milk in July. And after my husband ran off with a waitress from Toledo, I raised my daughter, Joni, all on my own. She was my sunshine. My only real reason to keep waking up some days. Everything I did for her. And tonight, she threw me out into the rain like I was nothing. I was standing on the porch in my slippers, clutching the same old cardigan I wore on cold nights. Rain poured down in sheets, soaking everything. My hair. My skin. Even my bones felt wet. Joni stood in the doorway, arms crossed. She wouldn't look me in the eye. "You can't stay here anymore, Mama," she said. Her voice was flat, like she'd rehearsed it. "It's not safe for Micah. You yell in your sleep. You scared him." I couldn't believe it. My voice cracked as I said, "It was just a dream, baby. A bad one. That's all." Then he stepped forward. Grant. My son-in-law. That man never liked me, not once in 10 years. Always so polite on the outside, but I could feel the way he looked at me. Like I was in the way. Like I was a weed in their perfect little lawn. Grant's voice was hard. "She needs to go. We've looked into homes. We're not abandoning you, Merla. But this can't go on." I looked past him, into the house I helped them buy when Joni was pregnant. I saw the kitchen table I scrubbed every Sunday. The rocking chair where I used to sing Joni to sleep. The photo wall, pictures I hung up myself. "Please," I whispered. "Just let me stay one more night. I'll leave tomorrow. I promise." Grant didn't answer. He just held out a trash bag. My clothes were stuffed inside, like garbage. And Joni didn't say a word. She just let him do it. The door shut. I stood there, in the rain, heart thudding like a broken drum. It was just past 7. I didn't have a car. My pension check wouldn't come until next week. My phone was dead. The last person I could call moved to Florida last fall. I didn't even have a coat, just that cardigan and my slippers. Each drop of rain felt like a slap. I walked. I don't know why. I didn't have a destination. Maybe I just didn't want to cry where they could still see me. I walked past maple trees and flower beds and barking dogs behind fences. The streets blurred as my tears mixed with the rain. And I remembered something. I remembered my brothers, standing over me when I was just a little girl and dropped a plate. "You useless little thing," one of them said. Then came the slap. And silence. I never told anyone. Never told Joni. And now, she threw me out because I had a nightmare. After everything I gave her. After everything. I don't know how I made it to the old library. It was abandoned years ago. Boarded up. But the porch had a little overhang. I dragged myself up the steps and sat. Cold wood. Soaked cardigan. My legs shaking. And then I let myself cry. Not just from the cold. From the knowing. The knowing that I was truly, completely, alone. No family. No friends. No one who cared. But the thing is, I didn't die out there. I didn't crawl into a hole and give up. I just sat there, in that rain, and something started to burn in me. A little flicker. Not fire. Not yet. But resolve. I've survived worse. I was Merla Jean Thatcher. I was raised by wolves in human skin. I raised a child by myself. I worked in a meatpacking plant until my back gave out. They thought they were throwing away a frail old woman. They forgot who I was. And if life had one more chapter to give me, I was damn well going to write it myself. As I sat there, wiping the rain from my eyes, I looked across the street. There it was. The old Thatcher house. The one I grew up in. The one where the bruises and secrets lived. It had been boarded up for years. No power. No visitors. Condemned. But tonight, a light was on in the upstairs window. And the front door? It was open. I don't know what pulled me across that street, cold, wet, shivering like a lost animal, but I couldn't look away from that upstairs window. The light flickered. Yellow. Soft. Impossible. That house hadn't had electricity in over 20 years. No one had lived there since my youngest brother, Hank, finally got arrested and carted off for stabbing a man outside a gas station. The roof was caving in. The front door had been nailed shut. But that night, it stood open. Like it had been waiting. I crossed the street, my wet slippers slapping the sidewalk. Rain blurred my vision, or maybe it was my nerves. The porch steps groaned under my weight, just like they used to when I was 15, sneaking out to catch a breath away from their fists. The door creaked when I pushed it open. The smell hit me first, damp wood, mildew, and something else. Old rage. The inside was dust and silence. No furniture. Just peeling wallpaper, water stains, and air that still remembered screams. And yet, that light from upstairs glowed like a promise. I should have turned around. I should have walked back into the rain and slept behind the grocery store or curled up in the library like a stray cat. But I didn't. I climbed the stairs. Each one creaked like it was telling me to go back. I didn't listen. At the top, I turned left, toward my old bedroom. My safe room, back then. Not because it was safe, but because it was mine. The door was cracked open. The light was coming from inside. When I pushed it open, I stopped breathing. There was no lamp. No candle. Just the moonlight reflecting off an old broken mirror that I hadn't seen in 50 years. And taped to the wall was a photograph. I stepped closer, heart pounding. It was Joni. Maybe 17. Her prom picture. The same one I used to keep in my wallet. Who put it here? I backed up slowly, a chill crawling down my back. I wasn't alone in that house. I knew it. That's when I heard it. A floorboard creaking downstairs. I froze. Then another step. And another. Slow. Measured. Heavy. My first thought was, it's Hank. But Hank was in a prison in Indiana. Or maybe dead. Still, my blood turned cold. My hands started shaking again. I looked around the room, searching for something, anything, that could protect me. A rusted lamp base. A shard of broken mirror. And then, nothing. The footsteps stopped. I tiptoed to the hallway and peeked over the stairs. Empty. Only the front door was swinging slowly, back and forth in the wind. I must have left it open. Or someone else had. I don't know how long I stood there, heart thumping like a hammer in my chest. When I finally stepped outside, the rain had softened to a drizzle. The light in the window was gone. Back to black. I spent the night in the Thatcher house. No way around it. I didn't have anywhere else to go. I curled up in a corner of my old bedroom, wrapped my cardigan around me, and let my bones rest. That's when the memories started clawing back. Hank. Milo. Earl. My 3 brothers. God help me, I hated them. Mama died when I was 9. After that, it was just Daddy and the boys. But Daddy didn't last long. He drank himself into an early grave and left me with 3 wolves and a house full of secrets. Milo was the worst. Not because he hit the hardest, but because he always smiled when he did. Like it made him feel big. Hank was the loudest. He liked to yell before he hit you, so you had time to cry first. Earl was quiet. Dangerous quiet. He didn't hit as much. But he watched. He knew what the others were doing, and he didn't stop them. That made him just as guilty. From age 10 to 20, I was their slave. Cooked. Cleaned. Lied to neighbors. Kept my bruises covered. And then one night, I left. I ran. Stole $43 from Hank's dresser and took the Greyhound to Wisconsin. I changed my name for a while. Got a job at a diner. That's where I met Joni's father. He seemed nice. Gentle. Until he wasn't. But Joni, she was different. When I held her for the first time, I swore to God I'd protect her from everything that hurt me. Everything I ran from. I buried my past so deep, I thought it was gone. And now, she'd become just like them. Not with fists. But with silence. That kind of betrayal? It cuts deeper. As the sun started to rise, the rain stopped. I stepped outside the Thatcher house and looked out over the street. Quiet. Too quiet. That's when I made a decision. I wasn't going to vanish. I wasn't going to die in the street, forgotten like some broken thing. They all thought I was weak. Joni. Grant. My brothers. But they were wrong. I wasn't going to get even out of bitterness. I was going to rise, out of strength. I was going to rebuild. Quietly. And they were going to see me. Before I left the house, I turned back for one last look. Something caught my eye. On the staircase wall, someone had scratched words into the wood. Deep. Fresh. You still owe us. My blood ran cold. Someone had been in that house recently. And they remembered me. I left the Thatcher house just after sunrise. My knees ached like rusted hinges, and my cardigan still held the weight of last night's rain. But something had shifted in me. I wasn't the same woman who stood on Joni's porch begging for mercy. I'd spent the night with ghosts, and they reminded me who I used to be before I let myself get smaller. I had nothing, no home, no phone, no bank account I could access without Joni's help. But I still had me. And that was going to be enough. The town hadn't changed much in 50 years. Same cracked sidewalks. Same rusting stop signs. The old Methodist church still stood like a crooked tooth near Main Street. I passed Mrs. Langley's flower shop, now boarded up, and finally came to Mel's Diner, the only place in town open before 7 a.m. I stepped inside. The smell of coffee and bacon hit me like a memory. Vinyl booths, jukebox in the corner, bell over the door, exactly how I remembered it. I felt out of place. Old. Tired. But I walked straight up to the counter like I belonged there. A young woman with short black curls and a name tag that said Amy smiled at me. Coffee, hon? I nodded, too proud to ask for it free, too broke to pay. She poured it anyway. No charge. God bless her. I wrapped my hands around the warm mug and tried not to cry. That's when I saw her. In the corner booth. Red hoodie. Stringy blonde hair. Barely 19. She was staring at me over her eggs like she recognized something in me. Or maybe I just looked as lost as she felt. After a minute, she slid out of the booth and walked over. You used to live in that haunted house on Ashwood, didn't you? She asked. Her voice was raspy, like she smoked more than she spoke. I nodded slowly. A long time ago. They say 3 brothers died in there, she whispered. Like, badly. 1 in a fire. 1 went missing. And 1 still locked up, right? I stared at her. You know a lot for someone I've never met. She shrugged. I read things. I watch people. I'm not stupid. Then she held out her hand. Name's Penny. Penny Coyle. But I don't go by that anymore. I shook her hand. Her fingers were cold. She looked like she hadn't eaten in a day. "You live around here?" I asked. She smirked. "I sleep behind the bowling alley. If you call that living." We sat in silence for a while. She watched the door like she expected someone to come through it angry. I watched her the way you watch a deer near a trap. Finally, she said, "You don't look like the kind of lady who belongs out in the rain." I laughed once, dry and hollow. "And you don't look like the kind who begs strangers for money. But here we are." She leaned closer. "You got family?" I swallowed. "Not anymore." She nodded like she understood. And I think she did. By afternoon, Penny and I were sitting outside the library, splitting a stale muffin I bought with the last 3 coins in my coat pocket. She told me she'd been kicked out 6 months ago. Her mother remarried a man who gave her black eyes and empty promises. When Penny tried to tell someone, her mom called her a liar. Sounded familiar. "I got no one," she said. "But I'm not dumb. I just need a plan." I looked at her, really looked. Under the grime and sass, there was something sharp. Clever. She reminded me of Joni, before the world turned her hard. "I need a plan, too," I said. "Maybe we help each other." She raised an eyebrow. "You got a plan already?" I didn't. Not fully. But I had motives. I had a list in my head. And I had something even better than rage. Time. No one sees an old woman coming. That night, Penny led me to a back corner of an abandoned train depot. Quiet. Dry. Out of sight. We laid out a blanket she stole from a laundromat. She gave me her extra hoodie, and I gave her the last 2 aspirin from my purse. We didn't talk much, but I could tell, we were becoming something. Not family. Not friends. Something quieter. Something built from ruin. Before we fell asleep, she whispered, "You ever think about getting back at them?" My heart kicked once. I didn't answer right away. Then I said, "Not with fists. Not with fire. But yes. I think about it." She grinned in the dark. Good. Because revenge is a lot more fun when you've got a lookout. I stared at the ceiling. Somewhere in that black sky was the same moon that watched my brothers hurt me. That saw Joni slam the door. I made a promise right then. They wouldn't win. Not this time. The next morning, Penny brought me something wrapped in a plastic bag. "I found this near the Thatcher house," she said. "Thought it might be yours." I opened the bag. Inside was a necklace. Mine. The one Joni made me for Mother's Day when she was 6. It had been missing for over a decade. And someone had returned it. Not to Joni. Not to the house. To me. Scratched into the back of the heart-shaped pendant were 3 words. "We remember you." I held the necklace in my hand for a long time before I said a word. It was light. Plastic. Childish. But in my palm, it felt heavier than a cinder block. That pink heart had once meant everything to me. Joni made it with glitter glue and a crooked plastic bead that spelled MOM. I wore it every day until the string snapped. I searched the entire trailer for it back then, under rugs, behind the couch, inside the vacuum bag, but it vanished. And now, here it was. Wrapped in a grocery bag. Left like an offering. "We remember you." Penny watched me like a detective might. Calm. Curious. "You okay?" she asked. "No," I said. "But that's not new." We walked in silence until we reached the old library. The front doors were locked. It was Sunday, but Penny knew a window in the back that didn't latch. We snuck in like kids on a dare. The archives were in the basement. Dusty. Unloved. I didn't know what I was looking for, exactly. Maybe a sign that I wasn't crazy. Maybe some evidence my brothers were still around, or had someone doing their dirty work. We started with obituaries. Earl, dead. 1993, found face down in a river near Arkansas. Suspected foul play. No one arrested. No one cared. Milo, burned alive in a barn fire in 1987. Likely drunk. Unstable mental state. My stomach twisted reading it. And Hank, alive, last we knew. Incarcerated in Indiana State Prison. But his name didn't show up on the current registry. Gone. Transferred. Or dead. I leaned back and rubbed my face. That's when Penny slid something across the table. A newspaper clipping. Small. Almost hidden. Mysterious letters appear at Thatcher home. Locals fear paranormal activity. It was dated just 3 weeks ago. Someone had been leaving notes on the porch. Scratching words into the walls. Neighbors claimed the house was cursed. Teens dared each other to spend the night. None lasted more than 10 minutes. And one sentence at the bottom of the article chilled me to the core. The name Merla Jean was found carved into a tree behind the house. Locals say it wasn't there before. I stared at the page, heart thudding. I hadn't been back in town more than 48 hours. Someone had called me here. We spent the afternoon walking the neighborhood. Penny knew how to look without being seen. She spotted cameras on light poles, loose boards, broken fences, details I'd stopped noticing years ago. I think someone's been in the Thatcher house more than once, she said. You see how the front steps weren't slippery? Fresh footprints. Too many for just us. We walked to the cemetery next. Small. Mostly flat. No gates. My mama was buried there. So was Daddy. But I didn't visit them. I wasn't ready for that. Instead, I walked to the far side. Toward a crooked row of graves near the back, mostly forgotten, weather-worn stones. I stopped in front of one I recognized. Cassidy Ruth Thatcher. Born 1956. Died 1967. 10 years old. My cousin. She used to live with us for one summer before she disappeared. The family said she drowned. But I always had my doubts. She was a strong swimmer. Careful. Sweet. I looked down at her stone and whispered, I remember you, too. Penny stood behind me, quiet. She didn't ask questions. Just let me grieve. When we left, I noticed something new, fresh flowers at Cassidy's grave. Plastic roses, still bright. They hadn't been there long. Someone else had remembered her. And they wanted me to know it. That night, we huddled back under the train depot. Penny lit a candle stub she found. I wrapped myself in an old quilt someone had dumped behind the thrift store. Neither of us said much. Finally, she asked, You think your brothers are still alive? I shook my head. No. But their secrets are. She nodded. You gonna dig him up? I don't have a shovel, I said. She smirked. Lucky for you, I do. We spent the next few days gathering supplies. Penny taught me how to scavenge, dumpsters behind bakeries, unlocked laundry rooms, church kitchens after service. I taught her how to ask questions without sounding like she was. We made a list of everyone who'd lived near the Thatcher house. Names. Faces. Rumors. And I started writing things down, dates, memories, connections I hadn't thought of in decades. I remembered the barn fire where Milo died. I remembered the man Hank stabbed. I remembered that Earl used to disappear for nights at a time, and come back with blood on his shirt and no explanation. Something bad had happened in that house. More than just what they did to me. Maybe I wasn't the only one they hurt. Maybe someone else had waited, too. Waited for justice. Waited for me. The next morning, Penny didn't show up. I searched everywhere, behind the bowling alley, near the diner, under the depot. She was gone. Then I saw it, tucked under the quilt we shared. A folded piece of notebook paper. I opened it slowly. In shaky handwriting, she'd written. I think someone followed me last night. Don't trust the man with the blue truck. He knows your name. And underneath, scratched in what looked like charcoal. They're not done with you. The note burned in my hand like a match. Don't trust the man with the blue truck. My first thought was Penny. Was she hiding? Taken? Watching me from somewhere I couldn't see? But I knew better. That girl didn't scare easy. If she ran for a reason. And now I had one, too. I started with the only place in town that dealt in scrap metal and secrets, Jerry's Junk and Salvage off Old Route 5. Half the town's unwanted things ended up there, including busted pickups and beer-soaked confessions. I found Jerry elbow-deep in a busted washing machine. He looked up and squinted. You a ghost, or just someone I owe money to? Neither, I said. I need to know who owns a blue Ford pickup. Dented driver's side door. Loud engine. Been cruising near Ashwood Street at night. He gave a low whistle. That's specific. You a cop now, Merla Jean? No, I said. But I remember when you used to borrow our hammer and never bring it back. He chuckled, rubbed his chin. That truck sounds like Lorne Haskett's. But he died last winter. Buried up in Hilltop. Someone else is driving it, I said. Jerry narrowed his eyes. Haskett's grandson came back to town a few months ago. Real twitchy kid. Bought the truck for next to nothing. Quiet. Doesn't talk to anyone. What's his name? I asked. Jerry shrugged. No idea. But he's got eyes like a dog that's been hit too many times. That evening, I walked to the police station. The front desk was empty, so I slipped around the side to the records office. 30 years ago, this place scared me. Not anymore. No one stopped me. No one noticed me. That's the gift of getting old. You turn invisible. I pulled files. Old assault reports. Missing kids. Fire investigations. Anything with the Thatcher name. And that's when I found it. Case hashtag 87-1142. Victim, Cassidy Ruth Thatcher, age 10. Status, presumed accidental drowning, closed 1967. But right beneath that, someone had scribbled in red pen. Reopened 1995. Suspicious evidence found in barn debris. No next of kin responded to inquiry. I clutched the paper tight. Reopened? Evidence? What had they found? A second file, newer, yellowed at the edges. I flipped it open. Inside was a photo, faded, blurry, but unmistakable. A child's pink sneaker, half buried in ashes. Found years after the fire. Still intact. Still tagged Cassidy R. That barn was where Milo died. They said he'd been drunk. Set the fire himself. But now I wasn't so sure. And deep in my stomach, a sick realization unfurled. Cassidy didn't drown. She'd been burned. With him. I left the station before anyone noticed I was there. I walked in circles for hours, heart pounding, thoughts tangled. Was Cassidy the only one? Did someone else know? Was the man in the blue truck watching me because I was getting too close? By nightfall, I found myself back at the house. The Thatcher house. The porch creaked like it remembered me. The curtains were still drawn. The paint still peeled. But someone had changed the lock. I circled the back, stepped over weeds, and reached the basement door. It was jammed with a rock, just like we used to do when sneaking out after curfew. I pushed it open. Dust hit my nose like old perfume. Everything was still there. The broken TV. The melted radio. The water-stained ceiling. But something new stood in the middle of the room, a folding chair, facing the fireplace. On it sat a crumpled coat, a flashlight, and a torn photo of me from 30 years ago. And scribbled across the back. She remembers. I didn't scream. I didn't run. Instead, I sat. Right there in the chair. And I waited. An hour passed. Then another. Shadows stretched long across the floor. The house creaked like it was breathing. And then, finally, I heard it, gravel shifting. Headlights flashing across the trees. The blue truck. It rolled to a stop out front. The engine cut. And footsteps, slow, heavy, cautious, made their way up the porch. But they didn't knock. Whoever it was walked the perimeter. Peering through cracks. Checking for lights. Then the footsteps stopped. Right outside the basement window. I held my breath. A face appeared in the glass. Pale. Thin. White eyes. Young, but not young in spirit. He stared right at me. And smiled. Then vanished into the dark. I stayed frozen for another 20 minutes, heart thumping like war drums. Eventually, I crept out. Walked until my legs gave out. Slept in a church pew with my arms wrapped around my coat like armor. Morning came, and with it, a single, terrible truth. Someone knew everything. Someone had been watching me since the moment I came home. And someone wanted me to remember not just what they did, but what I might have forgotten. The next day, I returned to the cemetery. Cassidy's grave was different. The flowers were gone. In their place, a charred child's doll sat upright against the stone. Burned black. Smiling. And tied to its tiny wrist was a note. Cassidy never left the house. I didn't touch the doll. I couldn't. The sight of it, scorched, melted at the edges, grinning with half a face, made my skin crawl. But the note. Cassidy never left the house. That was a message. Not just a clue. A warning. Maybe even a threat. I scanned the cemetery, half expecting to see that blue truck parked under the trees. Nothing. Just me, the wind, and the dead. I wrapped the doll in an old grocery bag and carried it to the library. It was still early, but Miss Rena was already unlocking the front doors. She was the same age as me, maybe older, with a long braid and a voice like sugar hiding in vinegar. She raised an eyebrow. Back again, Merla Jean? You finally writing that murder mystery you used to talk about? Something like that, I muttered. I need old medical files. County records. Late 80s, early 90s. She narrowed her eyes. That's a very specific request for someone with a suspicious purse. I sighed. Rena, I'm tired, I'm cold, and I may be one clue away from losing my mind. Are you gonna help or not? Her smile softened. Well, if you're gonna lose your mind, you might as well do it in the right wing. Archives are in the basement. I'll unlock it. The hospital files were spotty. Most were handwritten, crinkled, and smelled like mildew. But buried inside a folder labeled Burns, Misk, was a name that made my heart seize up. Merla Thatcher. Admitted, July 1987. Burns, 70% of body, face partially unrecognizable. Discharged, August 2, 1987. Final status, presumed deceased, unconfirmed. 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 They buried him in a closed casket. I remembered that now. Everyone said it was because he was too damaged. But what if it wasn't him? What if Milo never died? My hands were shaking when I left the library. Cassidy. The barn. The fire. The smile in the window. It all came back in jagged pieces. He used to whisper to her at night. Told her fairy tales with sharp edges. Promised her things. I told Mama once, but she slapped me across the face and said, "You don't make up stories about family." After that, I stopped trying to save anybody. But now. Now I couldn't run anymore. I walked back to the ruins of the old barn. It was mostly ashes and weeds now, with a few beams standing like broken ribs. I stepped over rusted nails, crunching glass, and a half-buried tin lunchbox. Kneeling, I dug at the soft earth until I hit something solid. A floorboard. I pried it up. Beneath it was a space just big enough for a child to hide. Or be hidden. Inside, I found bones. Not many. But enough. Small. Fragile. Burnt. I dropped the board and staggered backward. Cassidy never left the house. And now I knew why. I didn't go to the police. What would I even say? Hey, remember that fire from 30 years ago? Turns out it might have been murder. They'd laugh me out of the station or cart me to the memory ward. So instead, I went back to Penny's old hideout near the depot. She still wasn't there. But someone had been. Her notebook sat on a crate, pages ripped out. A single word scrawled on the last page. Milo? And then, beneath it, in a different handwriting, sloppy, childlike. She knows now. I told you we shouldn't wait. I felt cold all over. Milo wasn't just alive. He was watching me. And he had help. That night, I curled up in the pew at St. Julian's, clutching my coat like armor. My knees ached. My back throbbed. I felt every one of my 76 years. But something inside me, something older, harder, was rising. They thought I'd come back to cry. To grieve. Maybe to beg for forgiveness. But I wasn't here to cry. I was here to end it. Cliffhanger ending, Chapter 6. At dawn, I woke to the sound of a door creaking open. I sat up, heart pounding. A shadow stood at the back of the church. Tall. Thin. I couldn't see his face. But I knew that walk. I'd seen it before. In boots crunching on barn floors. In footsteps that froze me as a child. He stepped forward into the light. And smiled. Hey there, baby sister. He stepped into the pale morning light like a ghost rising from its grave. The same sharp cheekbones. The same wolf smile. But thinner now. Crooked. Like it had been bent by years of hiding in the dark. Milo. I buried you, I whispered. I saw the casket lowered. I threw the dirt myself. He chuckled. You buried someone, sure. Just wasn't me. My legs wanted to run, but my spine held me straight. What do you want? I asked. I wanted to see if the old girl still had fight, he said, strolling slowly down the aisle. And look at you, digging up secrets like a hound after bones. I clenched my fists. Cassidy was 10. He stopped walking. So was I. Once. You think that makes you human? He tilted his head, like a curious animal. You think you're the only one who got hurt in that house? Don't you dare, I snapped. Don't you dare use what they did to us to excuse what you became. His smile cracked, like ice splitting on a frozen lake. What I became, he said slowly, was free. No more fists. No more screams behind bedroom doors. I lit the fire to burn it all away. I stared at him. You lit the fire? He nodded. Tried to do it clean. But Cassidy, he looked away for the first time, she was supposed to be out. She came back for that damn doll. I didn't know she was there. Not until the screaming started. My knees nearly gave. You killed her. He looked back at me with something close to sorrow. I loved her, Merla. I did. But I loved freedom more. I should have lunged at him. Screamed. Hit. Something. But instead, I just whispered, and the boy in the blue truck? Is he yours? Milo grinned. Smart girl. You sent him to follow me? He shook his head. No. He came on his own. Said he owed me. Found him in Baton Rouge, lost and hungry. I gave him a name. A truck. Told him about the house. Said he could watch over it for me. Watch over it, I spat. Or scare off anyone who got close? Milo shrugged. Same thing, in the end. I stepped backward toward the altar, needing space. Air. A plan. But Milo just watched me. You're not gonna scream? He asked. No. Call the cops? No. He grinned wider. So what now, baby sister? I looked him in the eye. Now, you follow me. We walked in silence. Out of the church. Down Main Street. Past the grocer, the rusted gas station, the stoplight that never changed. No one noticed us. Just two ghosts from the past, walking into the morning mist. The Thatcher house stood ahead, gray, broken, gasping for breath. And behind it, the woodshed. I unlocked the rusted padlock. Pushed the door open. Inside, everything was just as I'd left it the day before. The folding chair. The torn photo. The box beneath the floor. I turned to him. This is where it ends. He stepped inside, looking around like he was back in a dream. I remember this place, he said. This is where Daddy used to. Don't. I cut him off. Don't rewrite what you did with what he did. He turned slowly, eyes narrowing. You always thought you were better than me. I was, I said, voice steady. I still am. He moved fast, quicker than I expected. Grabbed my arm hard. But I didn't flinch. Because tucked into the pocket of my coat was the hammer from Mama's old toolbox. And I brought it down across his shoulder with everything I had left. He held, staggered back, knocking over the chair. You wanted freedom? I said, backing him into the far wall. Well, I want truth. You wouldn't kill me, he growled. No, I said. I'm not like you. He lunged again. But this time I was ready. I ducked low, tripped him with my cane, and he fell hard, right into the pit beneath the loose floorboard. I didn't slam the wood shut. Not yet. I stood over the edge and stared down. He lay there, groaning, staring up at me. You won't leave me here, he whispered. You don't have it in you. I raised a daughter alone, I said. I buried a child I loved. I slept in church pews and begged the wind for answers. So don't tell me what I have in me, Milo. Cliffhanger ending, Chapter 7. I reached into my coat pocket, pulled out the photo of Cassidy's shoe, and dropped it into the pit beside him. I found her, I whispered. And when I tell them what I found, I'll find you, too. All over again. In every file. Every lie. I stepped back and slowly lowered the floorboard shut. His screams followed me out into the light. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on the porch of the Thatcher house, the bones of it now just memory and rot, and watched the stars slowly fade into morning. He was still down there. In the pit. Screaming at first. Then sobbing. Then silent. I didn't check on him. I'd spent too much of my life trying to fix broken men. This time I was going to fix me. The next morning, I walked straight to the county police station. People stared as I passed, the old woman in boots too big, with mud on her hem and vengeance in her bones. I gave my statement to a young officer named Collins. He didn't believe me at first. Ma'am, are you sure you're not just confused? You said your brother died in a fire? I handed him the hospital report. The burned doll. The photograph of Cassidy's bones. I looked him straight in the eye. I've been confused most of my life. But not anymore. He read it all. Twice. And then he called for backup. They found Milo exactly where I left him. He'd passed out by then. Weak. Dehydrated. When they pulled him from the floorboard pit, he didn't fight. He just stared at me. No words. No threats. No smug grin. Just, hollow. Like all that fire he once had burned down to ash. Turns out, there was more. The boy in the blue truck, his name was Elijah Boone. Not a blood relative. Just another broken soul Milo had collected like kindling. Elijah had been forging IDs, threatening anyone who came close to the Thatcher land. He'd chased Penny away. Stolen files from the town archive. The sheriff's office picked him up in Kentucky 3 days later. Turns out, Milo had been planning to rebuild the barn. Sell the land. Rewrite history. Bury Cassidy again. Not this time. Penny came back. Her lip was split. One arm in a sling. But she came. I held her for a long time in front of the old diner, where we used to eat cherry pie on Sundays. "You were right," she whispered. "I didn't want to believe it, but you were right." I smiled. "You're here now. That's what matters." She reached into her coat and handed me a fresh notebook. "This time," she said, "we tell it all." The trial didn't last long. There was enough evidence to bury Milo twice. But I didn't attend every hearing. I only came for the last day. When the judge passed sentence, life, without parole, I stood up from the gallery. Milo didn't turn around. I didn't expect him to. But I said the words anyway. "You always said I'd break," I called out across the courtroom. "But I bent, Milo. I bent for 40 years. And then I stood up." He flinched. Just barely. And that was enough. A few months later, I bought a little trailer out near the edge of town. Nothing fancy. But it had a garden, a cat named Clover, and a porch swing that squeaked like a heartbeat. The town called me Miss Merla now, with soft voices and warm smiles. They brought casseroles. Sent cards. Some even apologized for not asking questions all those years ago. But I didn't need apologies. I needed peace. And I had finally found it. As for my daughter, Harmony, she never wrote back. Not after the eviction. Not after the news. Not even after I sent her a copy of the court transcripts. But that was her choice. I spent too long begging for scraps of love. Now, I was feeding myself. Some nights, I still hear Cassidy's laughter in my dreams. She's running across a golden field, hair like fire, chasing a doll that never burned. And sometimes, I run after her, young again, strong again, my legs moving like wind. I never catch her. But I always see her smile. And when I wake, I know, she's free now. Truly free.